Hey, what's up, everybody? BDL44 coming at you with another video. All right, so my phone is blurry. I should have cleaned that off beforehand, but I'm winging it. Just want to say good morning to everybody. So, what's on my mind right now is the NBA. I just called my uncle, wished him a happy birthday, getting squared away. Happy birthday, Uncle Therm, if you see this video. Definitely appreciate the family. And this video, in regards to the NBA, is talking about the playoffs and just what I see ahead. Now, we talked about the play-in tournament yesterday and gave you my predictions on that. And now, fresh out of bed, I'm thinking about the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Orlando Magic. And the reason why I'm considering the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Magic first is because they're the teams that I least know much about in regards to their matchups with one another. I have no idea how the season series went. I don't know how those teams match up. For all I know, one swept the other. I don't know. But what I can say is, based on the rosters and my understanding and how these two teams have been playing as of late, I wanted to give you my rundown. Now, what comes to mind, and I'm winging it completely, is the stars in this situation. Obviously, you're talking about Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley. And Evan Mobley, of course, is healthy now. I'd say Donovan Mitchell's working his way back, but he didn't look like himself about a week and a half ago against my Lakers, and we took care of them rather easily. Now, on the other hand, you're talking about the Orlando Magic. That's Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, who I assume will be back very soon, but I'm not really sure of the situation. Wendell Carter, Jonathan Isaac. And of course, you're talking about the numerous guards that they have: Anthony Black, Cole Anthony, and several others as well. Markelle Fultz, of course. This is a very deep Orlando team, and they've been winning games all year long. They kind of ran into a snag over the last couple of weeks, but finished the season strong yesterday and won their game by a lot. And I'd imagine they're getting back on track. I can't tell you how many times I heard the Orlando Magic song throughout the course of the year. When they win, I go to their Instagram page, and they would have that available to me, and they won quite a bit, which is why they're in the playoffs. I don't think this is going to be an easy series for either team. I can actually see the series going the distance in my mind. Now, of course, the mental edge, all of that information is very important. Who is better than whom, I don't know. But what I can tell you is, based on length and strength, this matchup looks very intriguing to me. Now, the one thing that I understand about Paolo Banchero that isn't mentioned very much is how big of a player he is and how much damage he can do dishing out punishment. He reminds me of Carmelo Anthony in that way, pushing people around, elbows and knees, bumping, 260 pounds or so, 6'10". It's almost a 7-footer. And most people don't realize that because of how fluid his basketball play is and how small he can tend to look when he's out there. But this is a massive human being coming at you, and you're going to have to guard him. Now, of course, they have the length with the Cleveland Cavaliers, but I don't know if they really want to be banging with this dude with who they have defending him, and that's when it's going to get really tricky for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Also, look at the Cleveland Cavaliers as not as deep of a basketball team as the Orlando Magic. They are not as deep of a team. Orlando has a much stronger bench, in my humble opinion. And I think that's going to play into it, especially when you consider guys like Anthony Black. What's the gentleman's name? I think his name is Caleb Houston, nice three-point shooter. Chuma, Okiki. I mean, their bench just goes really, really deep. A lot of those players, I don't know that they use in rotation very much anymore. Gary Harris, very good two-way guy. I look at Orlando and I just say I see more talent, more available rotations that should be able to contribute to winning basketball. Cleveland needs their starters to be on the floor a good portion of the time. Maybe Dean Wade is available if he plays well. He had a big game earlier in the year. Maybe you can get something there. Obviously, when you consider their bench, one of the first names that comes to mind is Caris LeVert. So I know he's going to have a big series in order for Cleveland to be successful. But I see Cleveland shortening their bench quite a bit in these playoffs. And I don't know that works in their favor. It's the same problem I had with them last year when they were going up against the New York Knicks. Their starting lineup is great, but their bench is questionable. Now, of course, you know, they do have a few guys that they've picked up on their bench. They paid a lot of money to the gentleman from the Miami Heat. His name always escapes me. This always happens to me with names, but he's been great for them all year long. But I think they moved him into the starting lineup. So it's one of those situations where I like him as a two-way player. He tends to shoot bricks here and there, but when he's on, he's really on. He can stretch the floor when he's good. And I think he's gonna have a massive series in these playoffs here. So I don't know, man. For me, obviously, I see strong star power with the Cleveland Cavaliers with Donovan Mitchell. If he has a big series, all bets are off because he probably is the best player in the series in theory. But you cannot underestimate Paolo Banchero and what level he can bring to the table. If he's the type of player that can elevate his game in the playoffs, so we're going to find that out. And the health of Franz Wagner really is a concerning thing there for the Orlando Magic. With Franz out there, it's a problem for Cleveland because I know that he's going to attack them in many ways. And I don't know that they have the wing defenders to keep up with him as well as Paolo and then all those guards. I don't know that Cleveland has enough to defend Orlando. And that's what I see in my head. Obviously, you got the stilts in the front court that are going to protect the rim. But how much protecting can they do when they have such big players coming at them? Franz is almost a 7-footer. What's the gentleman's name? Carter is damn near 7 feet. You know, you got Jonathan Isaac, who's going to have a similar effect on their end as well, protecting the rim. So I just see so much there with the Orlando Magic to try to offset what Cleveland brings to the table. And then you consider, you know, the guard play. It's just going to be so much that Cleveland's going to have to deal with. Of course, I would say Garland is probably the best guard in the series, not named Donovan Mitchell. I think the two best guards are over here in Cleveland. But when you look at the Orlando Magic, they have more of them. They're throwing more at you. Cole Anthony could have a big series. Markelle Fultz, if healthy, can have a big series. I'm not really certain how this health is going on. I haven't paying that close attention to that team. Gary Harris. You know, it just goes on and on. Anthony Black. That's a lot of different players that you're going to be throwing at the Cleveland Cavaliers at that guard spot. You know, I didn't even mention the other guy that they got over there that they picked up in the draft 3 years ago who's developed fantastically. His name also escapes me. But he's yet another guard that they have to deal with over there in Cleveland. And I just don't see the depth. It's too many waves coming at you with the Orlando Magic versus Cleveland. Too many waves of two-way players that are going to be effective. And I think the tricky part for Orlando is putting the right players on the floor at the right time. Who do you lean on more? Because that's been the issue all year for them, in my opinion. It's just having so many different players at the guard position to play and then having solidified forwards and centers that you can't really play small ball with those guards or put 3 and 4 guards on the floor without taken away from what it is that your team really is. So it's tricky rotations over there in Orlando, but they've had that unit all year long and have won games with that unit. And I just think that they're throwing more at Cleveland than Cleveland's throwing at Orlando. I really do. Even though Cleveland has high-level guards, high-level stars, length, I think the Orlando Magic might be a bit more versatile and definitely more deep. And I think that leans in Orlando's favor. Now, I do believe the series, if I'm not mistaken, begins in Cleveland. I think this is how that goes. And I wonder about that, if that's going to play a part in regards to Orlando. I think Cleveland has a bit more experience, obviously, in the playoffs. They made the playoffs last year and the year before. So that matters. But at the end of the day, man, I just see some really talented players over there in Orlando and so many waves of guards and forwards being thrown at you to where I really don't see Cleveland winning the series, man. I really don't. As I break this down, and I wish the names would come to mind. I could see these players in my head, but I should have looked at their the draft, their depth chart to kind of get a good understanding of these names. But It's a dangerous series for both teams. Obviously, health makes all the difference, and both teams have been dealing with some injuries. So we'll see. The healthier team may actually tell the story there. I can totally see the series going 7 games. But in my mind's eye, looking at this as a whole, just looking at the matchups, I favor the Orlando Magic to win the series, man. I favor the Orlando Magic to win the series. I don't know how that's expected to go in most people's eyes. I haven't listened to any breakdowns. I'm winging it, as you can clearly see, and I'm definitely not an expert on anything in Eastern Conference. But just kind of having my mind set on what these rosters look like, I just think Orlando might be a slightly more talented and a significantly more deep team. I really do. So my gut's telling me that this goes the distance, and Orlando will find a way to win the road game 7 in Cleveland. I think this goes 7 games, and I'm going to go with the Orlando Magic winning the series, man. And I know Orlando's been dropping games as of late. They haven't been playing all that great lately, but neither has Cleveland. Both of these teams have kind of stumbled out of the regular season and haven't really impressed over the last month or so. So they're kind of both in the same boat, which is why this is a good series in my mind. But I just look at it. It's too many different players coming at you with the Orlando Magic. And I think people are going to find out exactly how deep and how good this team can be in this series when they see the difference. It's one thing to think about it, and obviously Cleveland has the bigger name stars. But when you see what Orlando's actually bringing to the table in this series, you start to understand that they're a much more talented team than people really give them credit for. And because you don't see them on the national stage ever, it's easy to overlook them. But they've been winning games all season long. They had some down stretches, but they play fantastic defense. And I think they may they may be able to keep up with the Cleveland Cavaliers offensively, so long as they continue to play fantastic defense. Cavaliers should, in theory, be able to score more, but I think Orlando's a better defensive team. I think the rebounding edge may also favor Orlando, because I do look at the Orlando Magic as a team that has more length, even though Cleveland has such fantastic length in their front court starting lineup. Once you start digging into their bench, I'm not really sure who they're digging out. It's not looking very good. You got Damian Jones, you got Tristan Thompson. They're going to get ate up by the young, Orlando team. You got Batazde on that Orlando team as well. I like him as a rebounder, shot blocker behind Carter. And then, like I said, Franz and Paolo are basically 7-footers. And I think they're a bit more versatile and a bit more agile than what Cleveland's bringing to the table. And, Mobley's a developing player. I think Mobley one day can be a really big-time star, but right now he's still working on getting his offense together. Can't really stretch the floor reliably. I just don't think, as much as I like that front court duo, that twin tower duo, I don't think that they can throw enough at Orlando. Not with all of the size and length that Orlando's bringing, especially if Jonathan Isaac's healthy, blocking shots, flying all over the place. It just becomes a bit much for Cleveland to deal with, in my mind. And if Donovan Mitchell's not going to be 100% himself, Garland's still coming back, working his way back from injury, I just think that's a whole lot that they have to deal with. Now, if Franz Wagner can't go in this series, that changes things for me. I think it leans back into Cleveland's side of things. Orlando hasn't really played well without Franz Wagner as of late, so they're going to need him to be himself, or at least close to it. And I just don't know where he is in regards to returning. I have no idea. Maybe he's already back. I'm not sure. But all in all, I just look at this Orlando team is a team that's going to be throwing a lot at Cleveland. And if they can get their rotations right, play the right guards at the right time, I think they're going to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in the series. I say it's going 7, but, that's just a toss-up in my mind. That series could go a lot of different ways. I could see it going 6. I could see it going 5, but I'm going to stick with 7. And that is my breakdown of the Orlando Magic Cleveland Cavaliers series. you know, it's one of those situations where I just wish I looked at the depth chart so I could give you these guys' names, but I know what they can do. And I'm not confused about what these teams look like at all. That's really the case right there. So, yeah, man, I'd love to see what the experts have to say. And I'm looking forward to this series. I think these are two underrated teams, two teams that are going to, you know, really look to make a name for themselves. Darius Garland in the playoffs, Mobley in the playoffs. That's interesting to me, seeing what these guys can do. So they can take steps forward for themselves. This is when guys make names for themselves. Obviously, Paolo, first-time All-Star. I expect for him to have a huge series. And like I said, both of these teams have been stumbling into the playoffs. Neither one of them are really kicking tail like that. And I think it's perfect because they can see one another and kind of shake the rust off and get a little healthy for the second round, whichever move forward. So I think this is good for them. They didn't want to run into a hot team and get knocked off. They need to run into each other. So I think it's good. I think it's going to be a good matchup. I think it's going to be a matchup where people start their own names and their legends, and we're going to know a lot by the end of this series that we don't know right now about these two teams. So that's what comes to mind, man. I appreciate everybody for watching my very loose breakdown and prediction of the Cleveland Cavaliers and Orlando Magic. My name is BDO44. Thank y'all for watching. I'm out.